You are listening to A Scary State, and this week we're talking about Montana. So, Lauren.
Yes, Kenzie.
Let's get scary.
We're recording in Mackenzie's house and it's real hot.
I told you.
Oh, and we forgot to say this last time. We are recording this for the first time in June, but our last episode that we recorded in May went out in June. But we want to say Happy Pride Month.
Oh, yeah. I did post about it on our story.
I know you did.
Okay.
But we're also going to say it too. So Happy Pride.
Sometimes I don't think you look at the post that I posted.
I do. I like them all.
Just because you like them doesn't
It means
mean
I saw them.
Did you read it?
Oh my God.
Exactly.
Also, I have a funny story. Okay, so
I also have a funny story.
I had a spider in my car.
That's not funny.
No. And so one day I was on the phone, I was making a doctor's appointment and I saw it come out onto my windshield and I'm like trying not to scream into the phone. So I just go, oh. I got out of the car and then I went to go kill it and it hid back in its hiding spot. And I was like, oh my God. So that's all I could think about. So then I got out of work one day and I walk to my car and I sit down and I see it. And so I slink out of my car and I take my shoe off and I go to hit it. Well, I don't see a mark on the part where I hit it. And I was like, oh my God, there's no way I didn't kill it. I look and it's right by my lights now. And I went, ah! And so there was a guy in the parking garage. And he's like, are you okay? And I was like, I'm sorry, there's a spider. It's been in my car for a while. I'm startled. That was just an involuntary scream. So he was coming over to me and I was like, I got it. We're okay. So I killed it. But and I knew there was one because you could see the spider webs in my car.
Oh my God.
I know.
It was living.
I know.
Wow. You kicked it out?
Yes, I did. I killed it. It was evicted. Well, I gave it a warning. I said, if I come out to my car this afternoon and I see you, I'm killing you.
Okay.
So you know.
So you gave him an eviction notice.
I did, and he didn't take it.
Okay. Well, then I guess I understand.
And so,
I'm saying this as if I wouldn't have immediately been like, get the fuck out of here.
But now I'm scared that there's another one because I don't know if the spider webs I see are just the ones that I didn't clean from that one.
Spider webs? As in more than one?
Yes! It would jump around my car. I even thought about getting a bug bomb for it. Oh, it was funny. I went to Home Depot and I was like, do you guys have bug bombs? And he looked at me and I was like, a thing to kill bugs? And he just smiled and pointed down an aisle and I said, okay. So I go down there and I find the bug bomb. But it was use in spaces of 2,000 cubic meters or whatever. And I was like, my car is way smaller than that.
Yeah, you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, well, I didn't.
Get the raid-off spray and just spray your whole fucking car.
No. Well, anywho, I think it's dead. So we'll see if there's a family of them. If there, I told Mom about it and she was like, I'm sorry, you're just going to have to set your car on fire.
I mean, you're going to have to drive it into a river.
God, I hate them so much.
Okay, you want to hear my funny story?
Yes.
Okay, so last week, so you know how occasionally, only twice, I'll forget to lock my door?
Yes.
It's worse when someone is with me. If there's a slight change in the routine.
Uh-huh.
And then I'm not good about locking it. Even with Millie, who's now sleeping, the angel she is.
Who's a dog, by the way.
Yes. A cute dog. Anyway, so I've had that habit. Last week, when my friend Grace was here, we were sitting on my couch and they're renovating the apartment above me because I'm pretty sure whoever was in there moved out. And so they're doing the whole switcheroo.
Right.
We're sitting on the couch. She's working. I'm doing school stuff. And I guess the door was unlocked.
Oh my God.
And someone opens it slightly, realizes it's the wrong apartment and closes it again. Not enough so that I could see who it was, just enough that I saw that it opened.
Oh my God.
And her and I are looking at the door. And so then on my app, I'm like, lock. So, in fact, when we were sitting here, as I was turning off the AC, I also locked the door.
Good. Kenzie.
I'm actually so much better at it than you think. But then I'm like, I have to tell her this story because it's funny. But now she's not going to believe me that I actually lock my door often.
I don't. I think I told you the story of Nora. Podcast co-host.
Mm-hmm.
She said that she was upstairs working and her husband was upstairs working and all of a sudden they hear the front door open and close.
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing. She was like, the one time I forget to lock the door.
Well, this wasn't the one time.
Yeah, I know.
At least it wasn't at nighttime. It's daytime. Nighttime, daytime game.
Not any better.
I was with somebody.
Okay. So that if a murder came in, they would have had two bodies.
They knew, they didn't even open it right away. They were smart and instantly were like, nope, wrong apartment. I'm sorry. You scare you awake. I'm sorry.
That was a little Millie noise.
It's okay. Okay.
right, so should we jump into Montana?
Please.
This deep freeze may delight you. While many visitors to Montana's Glacier National Park pack the park during the summer to enjoy the explosion of flora and fauna, visitors
These alliterations are just...
Visitors willing to brave the winters enjoy a park without crowds. With easily visible mountain glaciers and more than 700 lakes, many that freeze during winter, visitors can snowshoe or cross-country ski through the million-acre winter wonderland and experience exactly what the park's name promises to deliver. More than 700 miles of trails beacon hikers, though not all of them are open in the winter. Yep.
I don't think you understand how much joy this brings me.
More than 700 miles of trails beacon hikers. Why am I saying beacon? Beacon. Beacon.
I'm so glad I'm editing the state facts.
Beacon. Beacon.
Okay, try again.
More than 700 miles of trails beckon hikers, though not all of them are open in the winter. Winter snow is the perfect canvas for spotting animal tracks and possibly the animals themselves. You may see coyotes, lynx, moose, elk, beavers, snowshoe hares, and even the elusive mountain lion.
It's so interesting because a lot of these places, like when I'm looking up like the nature stuff about them, you know, obviously not like Hawaii or something or Florida.
Right.
But for the most part, like you have collections of states because the climate is not that different. That It's roughly the same animals. And then sometimes you get like a lynx. I'm like, we haven't had a lynx.
I've never had one of those before.
So it's just fascinating. You know, you forget that some animals exist.
Right.
Until someone mentions them.
Like a lynx.
Like a lynx.
Montana's top natural resources were once copper, gold, silver, and sapphires.
I think that's why its name is, I don't even know what the nickname is because I forget. And we included that in our first episode of Montana, which is available wherever you get podcasts. But I saw them say something about like the sapphires or like whatever had to do with its state name.
Pretty.
Mm-hmm.
People still mine for precious rocks and metals here, but now one of the state's most valuable resources is petroleum. The state is also the world's...
Petrol.
My friend's going to London, and we were saying all these things that she has to say, and I was like, oh, you have to say aluminium instead of aluminum.
And basil.
Basil. Mm-hmm. Oh, that was the word. We were trying to think of what like spice or herb it was that
basil.
They say differently.
Privacy.
Oh.
They just say their vowels different for some words.
So I told her she needs to start practicing. The state is also the world's leading producer of talc, a mineral used in cosmetics.
Talcum powder?
Yeah, probably. Okay. Oh.
Sometimes I say things on accident and it ends up being right.
I think that might be right. Montana has its own version of oatmeal, cream of the West, a roasted wheat cereal that local families have been eating since 1914. That doesn't sound good to me, but...
I don't like oatmeal, so...
I do like oatmeal, but something about roasted wheat cereal just, I don't know.
Oatmeal's, it's a texture thing.
I get that.
Yeah.
It is a weird texture thing.
Yeah.
Step into the past in Virginia City, a gold mining town that still looks like it did in the 1800s. You can see 19th century plays, take a stagecoach tour, and even check out stores with 100-year-old items on display. That would be kind of cool.
I included it because it said Virginia.
Virginia City, not in Virginia.
Correct.
The original entrance to Yellowstone National Park, the world's first national park, is in Grand Ear, Montana, and was erected in 1903. How could it be made? Or was the sign
the
for
entrance.
it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The entrance specifically.
Okay, because I'm like, it's a natural thing. Montana is the only state with river systems that empty into the Hudson Bay, Pacific Ocean, and the Gulf of Mexico.
Which is crazy.
That is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I feel like
if
the
you think
Hudson Bay
about,
is like way over there.
Well, that's the thing. Like, that's why, obviously, it's not direct.
Right. Pacific, way over there. And
well,
Gulf
it's closer to the Pacific
way down
than
there.
The other two.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's weird. But I'm like, I mean, it makes sense.
It
Watersheds.
Does.
You know.
No, it makes sense.
When you're driving down to 81, have you ever seen you are now leaving the Chesapeake Bay watershed?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense. People have lived in Montana for more than 12,000 years. The first group of people to populate the Americas were known as the Paleo-Indians. The first peoples crossed into North America from Russia via the Bering Strait at the end of the Ice Age some 14,000 years ago.
I feel like I missed that history lesson. Like, I know it, but like I missed it. And I'm like, that sounds like it's really cool.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to know more. But I think like ancient stuff, I was like, ugh.
I know back then it's just like, ugh.
Well, and our teachers sucked. They didn't make it interesting. Oh my God, I'd be a great history teacher. Anyway, continue.
The first archaeological evidence of human existence in the region, now known as Montana, comes from a dig site known as the Anzac site near Wilsall, Montana. The remains of a male infant were found, which had been carbon dated, with the results indicating that it was between 11 to 13,000 years old. Jeez. The Roe River is considered the world's shortest river, measuring 201 feet or 61 meters long at its longest point. The river flows from underground springs in the Little Belt Mountain Range to the Missouri River, which is the longest river in North America. The Roe River is 6 to 8 feet deep and was named the world's shortest river by the Guinness Book of World Records in 1989. Montana holds the U.S. and perhaps world record for the fastest rise in temperature over a 24-hour period. A downslope Chinook wind event pushed the temperature at the town of Loma from negative 54 degrees Fahrenheit at 9 a.m. on January 14, 1972, to 49 degrees Fahrenheit by 8 a.m. on January 15th. Gross. I feel like that's when people get sick. The 103 Fahrenheit or 57.2 degrees Celsius rise is the greatest change in temperature ever officially recorded on Earth within a 24-hour period.
That's like crazy
That
how
is
cold that goes to how fucking warm that is.
103.
Like if you're, it's like one of those things, like, you know how when it goes from summer to fall, it feels really cold.
Mm-hmm.
But when no, wait, hold on. This makes sense. Give me a second.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So when it goes from summer to fall, that 50 degrees feels really cold. But when it goes from winter to like spring, that 50 degrees feels really warm.
Yeah.
See, I knew it was get there.
Okay.
I feel like that's how this would be. Like if you start off at negative 54, 49 degrees is going to feel hot as hell.
Yeah. But I mean, it's still 103 difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just going to, but like 49 to us is freezing. And they're like, sunbathe.
I know. Once again, Montana holds perhaps the world record for the sharpest drop in temperature as well as the sharpest increase. Browning, Montana saw its temperature drop 100 degrees Fahrenheit from 44 degrees Fahrenheit to negative 56 Fahrenheit in less than 24 hours as a result of a cold front passage on January 23rd to 24th, 1916. Fairfield, Montana saw an 84-degree drop from 63 Fahrenheit to negative 21 Fahrenheit in just 12 hours on December 24th, 1924. It was getting ready to have a white Christmas.
I'll say.
This is generally credited as the record for any 12-hour period.
I would just like to say for all our metric people out there, my dad, who's like a big math guy, said that the metric system is easier except for temperature. That's the only thing that we should keep that's on our end of things because it makes more sense. And so,
I do agree with that.
So
when Joe and I were in Punta Cana, we had to like keep Googling what the temperatures were in our room because we would set it to like, I think 22 degrees Celsius, which is like normal, like 60, 70, whatever. But yeah, we had to keep Googling because I don't know it.
Yeah, it don't make no sense.
No, it don't make no sense.
When we went to Canada a bajillion years ago, we drove because we're psychotic. And we were in Halifax. And my dad was driving down the highway and all of a sudden he slams on the brakes. And we're like, what? He was like, it's 110 kilometers an hour, not 110 miles an hour. We're like, oh shit, you were flying.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that could have been bad, but it was okay because he realized it
that could have been really bad.
Over. So it was fine.
Well, that is Montana.
Montana.
All right, Mackenzie, what story do you got?
So today's story will include a soapbox moment.
Naturally.
Nothing particularly unjust happens in the story, but one of the articles that I read and subsequently used has a good anecdote that highlights an important topic at the end of it. And what's even more captivating about this anecdote is that it was said back in 1959. And it leaves...
So that's making me feel like not much has changed since 1959.
It leaves me wondering, and so should you, how the same information can be said for 65 years and yet it is still debated today.
Okay, yep, I was on the right track.
That's where my soapbox is. Nothing with these guys. These guys get exactly what they deserve.
No ghost soapbox this time. Yeah. That was my favorite when it was a ghost story. Like, I have a soapbox at the end.
What was it for?
Wasn't it like, is a house haunted if you don't know that the ghosts are there or something? Was that the soapbox? Well, it was about ghosts. So that's all I remember. I don't know.
I think maybe leaving them alone.
Oh, maybe. You'll just hear cute little dog Murphs throughout this episode.
Thank you. Are we safe? Are we okay? Yes.
And I like how she's not even doing anything to do anything. She's just laying down. It's not like she's alerting us or guarding us. She's just laying down.
Just wait. Great. She spoke it into existence. Okay. Let's begin. Jerry Myles was born in Sioux City, Iowa on January 15th, 1915, to a single mom who lived a transient life and quickly put her son up for adoption.
Oh.
When he was 15, his foster parents put him in a correctional home, And after his release, Myles spent 2 years looking for his real mother.
Oh, that's sad.
When he finally found her, he learned that she had remarried and refused to take him into her life. Myles spent the remainder of his life in and out of correctional facilities. That's the only time you're going to feel bad for him.
Oh, okay. Again, feel bad for the kid, not the adult.
Exactly. In fact, he would end up spending more time inside of them than outside. In December of 1944, Myles organized a mutiny at a federal penitentiary in Atlanta, Georgia, on the grounds of poor medical care, no church services, and having to wait in line in the mess hall.
I mean,
just wait.
At this moment, valid.
Yeah, you know, the first part of this, he's going to sound like a somewhat decent person. He's not. It's all selfish reasons, because the other half of that sentence of having to wait in line in the mess hall was with specific people that he didn't want to stand near. But I didn't want to include that part.
But you did.
But I'm throwing it out there as like, no.
Right.
It wasn't
good reason.
He's actually being rude.
Oh, okay.
Just didn't want to say the rude things because they're rude.
I think we can all kind of guess what those things would have been.
Yeah, you're going to have to use your context clues and those inferencing skills that I know your teachers taught you.
Yep.
Afterwards, the administration declared Myles to be, quote, incorrigible and a danger to the security of their prison.
Oh.
They said their facilities did not have the capability to fully monitor Myles's activities, so they transferred him to Alcatraz in 1945.
Oh my gosh.
Every time I see Alcatraz, I have to like really think hard of what the Harry Potter one is called.
Azkaban.
Because it's so fucking similar.
Yeah, she probably got a lot of the inspiration.
I was wondering that.
Because it's a big, tall stone tower in the middle of the water with like waves crashing against it. Alcatraz is on its own little island out in the middle of the water, and it's a big stone structure.
Yeah. Seem to have a lot of similarities going on.
Azkaban has the Death Eaters, though. The Dementors.
Well, Alcatraz is supposed to be, or supposedly, inescapable.
Yeah.
So
is Azkaban.
Yeah.
Because you have your Dementors who are going to give you the death kiss.
I think they just go into the freezing cold Pacific Ocean.
Yeah. Yeah.
A psychiatrist. Because Alcatraz comes right after it. A psychiatrist at Alcatraz, Romney Ritchie, described Myles as having an, quote, emotionally unstable psychopathic personality. It was believed that Myles had an obsessive need to be the center of attention. Nothing was off the table to attain this attention either. Myles became an institutionalized career prisoner, committing small acts of burglary to get sentenced to more prison time whenever he found himself free.
Why?
On the outside, he was nobody. But on the inside, Myles had power.
Okay.
While at Alcatraz, Myles witnessed the infamous Battle of Alcatraz in May of 1946. Myles did not partake in the escape attempt, but he would remember the methods used by Bernard Coy, who had initiated the riot. Jerry Myles spent about 7 years at Alcatraz between 1945 and 1952, after which he was transferred to Leavenworth.
Ugh.
After he was released from Leavenworth in March of 1952, he finished his sentence at the Georgia State Penitentiary and was released in May of 1958.
Is Leavenworth only the military one? Oh.
I know it's in Kansas.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was only military at the time.
Okay.
Because
it's just military now, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think a lot of these penitentiaries, like especially out west, were fairly new.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I didn't look too into it. We don't need to spend too much time on it because it's just mentioned.
Okay.
So it's fine. Maybe, no. You know what? It's fine. Throughout his almost 15 years in prison, Myles learned about a prison in Montana where the convicts ran the industries. They were known as a con boss.
Oh.
The con boss system used various convicts to direct work phases, which, naturally, the inmates turned into racketeering schemes. Prior to the ending of that system, some prisoners sent thousands of dollars out from the rackets being run in the prison.
Wow.
Yeah.
And back then, thousands of dollars, too.
Is a lot. So when he was released from Atlanta in 1958, Myles bought a bus ticket to Butte. Probably not Butte.
Oh, B-U-T-T-E.
Mm-hmm.
Butte.
I want it to be Butte.
No such luck.
Where he was arrested for burglary on purpose.
Oh.
He was sentenced to 5 years in prison at the Montana State Prison in Deer Lodge in June 1958. Ding, ding, ding. You'll hear that again.
Yeah, you will.
And it wasn't even planned, which I think I feel like this was a moment that was bound to happen.
Yeah.
Like we just kept having these similarities and similarities and similarities. And finally we got to be like, oh, it's the same place. This will all make sense in a moment or two.
Or like 50.
Yeah, that too. Unfortunately, Unfortunately, the prison didn't look much into Myles's background and missed the part on his record that lists incitement to mutiny as one of the reasons he never got time off for good behavior. Because of this oversight, Myles was placed in the general population. Due to his prison expertise, Myles quickly rose to the position of con boss of the garment shop.
Oh.
He used his position to demand favors anywhere from a pack of cigarettes to sexual favors. Being in the general population is where he met twice convicted burglar 25-year-old George Alton and easily influenced convicted murderer 19-year-old Lee Smart Jr. Lee Smart was born in 1940 in Washington State and found himself in the Washington State Training School as a teenager, but he escaped in 1956 when he was 17 years old. Smart and a friend went on a 2-week criminal binge, which ended in Great Falls, Montana, and Smart left his friend behind and went up north. As Smart carried on with his travels, he encountered a traveling salesman, Charles Ward, outside of Browning in April of 1956. Not much detailing what happened, except for the fact that it resulted in Smart bludgeoning Ward to death with a pair of pliers and robbing him of $100 cash.
Oh my God, a pair of pliers?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Smart was sentenced to 30 years confinement at the Montana State Prison for second-degree murder. Smart's mother, Mary Smart, told reporters, quote, "Before his lawyer entered a guilty plea for him, Lee begged me to let them hang him. He said, I can't live in prison."
I mean, every time I watch a prison show, I just realize how I would not do well in prison.
Well, that's why they have the saying, if you can't do the time, don't do the crime.
No, see, my biggest fear ever, one of them, a few, but one of them is being legitimately in the wrong place at the wrong time. And then you don't do the crime, but you get convicted for it. And then you get sentenced for it when you did not do it. That's my biggest fear.
I have some good news for us.
Good.
We're white women, so that's never going to happen.
Oh, I know. Well, the show I'm watching, one of the girls gets set up for a murder, and now she's in prison.
It's a TV show. Lee Smart was almost 6 feet tall and was a scrawny kid weighing in at 147 pounds.
Oh my God.
Goals.
Seriously?
Once he was at the state prison, Smart eventually found his place playing drums for the prison band. He had fallen in with a relatively powerful group of convicts, the Band Gang, who were the largest trafficker of narcotics in the prison.
Oh.
Smart's murder charge gave him a prominent standing among the inmates, most of whom were incarcerated for larceny, which I'm pretty sure is most people even today.
Right.
Or drugs. We'll get into that later. Smart got in trouble a few times, once for being in possession of a weapon, once over his haircut, which led him to receive a buzz cut by an inmate barber, and again over an illicit weapon, which earned him time in isolation.
How do you get in trouble for your haircut?
He had a ducktail thing going on.
Ew.
Yeah, so maybe that's why.
Gross.
Probably better off shaved.
Probably.
Since the prison had no system of segregating inmates based on age, crime, or sexual proclivities, Smart was housed in general population, where he quickly became a target for older predatory cons, like Jerry Myles.
Oh.
Myles was impressed by Smart's impulsive nature and befriended the boy. The two eventually were in a sexual relationship. I'm pretty sure it was consensual.
Okay.
I don't know if it started that way, but I think because I remember reading in one of the things that they had to keep them separated.
Oh. Okay.
So it might even been a relationship, but I think it's still predatory because Myles is 44 compared to Smart, who's 19. So it's slippery slope.
Yeah.
But anyway, they were pals.
Okay. Good pals.
Yeah. Even though Smart had a murder conviction in connection to the Band Gang, which gave him a tiny amount of notoriety, he still felt he needed to hire protection. George Alton was a known troublemaker who sold protection services to newer inmates who could not fight for themselves.
That's actually being a businessman. That's very smart.
I didn't do the math conversion, but I'm sure it's a good chunk of change. Alton wasn't a very large man and had a wiry frame, but he was known for a vicious left hook, his prowess in the prize fighting ring, held weekly at the W.A. Clark Theater. So, people in the town would, go and see these guys fight.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, like boxing.
Well, yeah.
Okay. Alton had been in and out of prison since 1952 and was well respected by both guards and inmates. Lee Smart hired Alton as protection at the cost of $10 a month. Alton and Smart became friends and eventually cellmates until Alton was moved outside the walls into minimum security housing.
Oh.
Alton took full advantage of his trusty status and with a fellow inmate tried to escape using a prison vehicle in August of 1958.
Sir.
The day after Floyd Powell started his job as the new prison warden. The two prisoners waved to the warden on their way past, and Powell waved back.
As they were, like, escaping?
Mhm.
Oh, my God.
By the time the warden realized what had happened, Alton and his companion were too far away to do anything.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. Alton managed to stay hidden until November 1958, when he was apprehended in his hometown of Culberston. He returned to the prison and spent time in the hole, then more time in segregation. Apparently, those are two different places.
Yeah.
It was during this time that he met and had extensive conversations with Jerry Myles, who had been placed in a cell right next to Alton's in segregation. Warden Powell arrived in Deer Lodge knowing that the only way to truly modernize the prison was to build a whole new facility.
Okay.
Within weeks of taking charge of the prison, Powell brought in his friend and subordinate Ted Roth from Wisconsin to be his deputy warden. Between the two of them, Powell and Roth began a series of reforms which were targeted at updating the facility. They began by abolishing the con boss system, then improved inmate food quality by installing a take all you want but eat all you take policy, and supplying condiments on the tables.
Wow.
They also sought to crack down on the rampant drug use and black market inside the walls and began performing exhaustive background checks on prisoners, a practice that was not standard operating procedure until Powell came aboard.
Okay.
A training regimen for the guards was also instilled, which bettered communication between shifts and cut back on guard contributions to the black market. Something they were unable to initiate until it was too late was the removal of firearms from the cell blocks. Powell and Roth wanted to completely sweep both cell blocks of rifles the guards carried on the catwalks.
Oh, the guards had.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm thinking the inmates have guns in their cells, and I'm like, yeah, probably a good thing to get those out.
I thought the same thing too until I also read the next sentence.
Okay. We have a bad habit of doing that.
Yeah. They saw the .30-30 Winchester rifle's presence as an instigator for inmate uprising, but the guards refused to surrender the guns. Ding, ding, ding.
Both valid reasons. Both valid, like them wanting to get rid of them, but also the guards not wanting to give them back.
Yeah, but if you think about it, they were like shooting them with real bullets at the time, not like rubber bullets.
Yeah, that's not good either.
Yeah.
Prison's not good.
Well, it's also 1958, so right in Montana.
Mm.
When Warden Powell abolished the con boss system in October of 1958, Myles was stripped of his favor in the prison community and started acting out. He had a short, heated interview with Deputy Warden Roth in which Myles took an intense dislike to Roth and threatened his life.
Oh.
Roth sentenced Myles to isolation, or the hole, for an indefinite amount of time, followed by a longer stint in segregation. On February 27th, 1959, Roth released Myles back into the general population and assigned him to the water crew. Water crew was responsible for emptying the toilet buckets from cell block 2 and the guard towers.
Yuck. ...
Yuck. A quick description of how the prison is laid out.
Okay.
So the prison was surrounded by a high wall topped with guard towers, and just inside the wall is like an empty strip, or what they call the moat, and the wall guards can cover that.
Okay.
If you're looking at the prison from the main gate, you see cell block 2 on the left.
Okay.
Is this your left or my left?
That's your left.
On the left. The admin building in the middle, and cell block 1 is on the right.
Okay.
Which it's interesting because cell block 2 was built before cell block 1.
Huh.
I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a license plate factory at the end of the compound, and on the other side is the theater, and in between those two things is the large exercise yard.
Okay.
The warden's office is not in the admin building, but it is right across the street in front of the prison.
So not on the prison grounds?
Correct. It's like prison, road, warden.
Okay. I'd feel safer being the warden living off the grounds.
Oh, 100%. Also, during this time, there was no intercom or radio system that even the guards inside could use. So you did not know what was going on unless you were inside, hence why he probably waved at the people who drove by.
Right.
So if something is happening in one area, you would not know about it unless someone either came to tell you or you walked in and saw it yourself.
Okay.
Walter Jones was the prison sociologist and was very familiar with Jerry Myles, Lee Smart, and George Alton. He started working at the prison in the fall of 1958 at 24 years old.
Jeez.
The former powerful con boss complained to Jones about his position being taken away from him. Myles said, quote, "Prison is my home, and you're making it a tough place for me to live."
Sir, this is prison.
Jones had also recommended Myles to be in segregation, which made Myles very unhappy. He yelled at Jones, "I warn you, don't push me too far." This added to Myles' list of offenses that got him put in isolation.
Okay.
It goes without saying that Jerry Myles was pissed about the situation he was in. The career prisoner had learned a lot over the years about starting a riot/escape attempt and knew what needed to be done in order to get control of the prison. Once he was back in general pop, he started watching the movements of the guards to find loopholes in their routine.
Oh.
He began to recruit other inmates to help him execute his plan. He coerced Lee Smart to join him with the promise of freedom. It probably also helped that Smart was serving a 30-year sentence, which he would clearly rather die than complete. So he felt like he had nothing to lose. The prison sociologist Walter Jones wrote a tell-all for the Saturday Evening Post in June of 1959. That's when my daddy was born.
Oh.
In his article, he wrote, quote, "And I'm convinced that Myles wasn't as interested in escaping as he was in rebuilding his own ego and taking revenge on those he believed had persecuted him." Myles needed Alton because of his rapport with the inmate population. Alton also worked in the prison garage and had access to gasoline, a crucial part of Myles's plan. Myles assured Alton that they would use Deputy Warden Roth as a shield and a hostage to gain exit from Tower 7 and from there to freedom.
Oh, no.
Myles, Smart, and Alton constructed a reservoir in one of the shelves in Smart's cell, and Alton regularly filled the space with gasoline he smuggled out of the garage.
How? Was it just like a little, like, kind of like bowl thingy?
I think so.
Ew.
Yeah.
How do you get it out? Like in a cup?
I don't think security was tight then.
Huh.
And Alton was, like, trusted.
Oh.
So I think it was easy for him to
Dang.
smuggle it out. The trio waited until they had filled the container before enacting their plans. At about 3:30 p.m. on April 16th, 1959, guard Gus Byers was alone on the catwalk of Cell Block 1 across from where Myles and Smart were loitering. Byers turned to open a window to the brisk spring wind when he heard someone call his name. He turned into a splash of gasoline, which hit him in the face and chest, soaking his shirt.
Oh, no.
Smart and Alton lit a broom and tossed it onto the catwalk behind Byers, who, with his vision blurred by the gasoline, saw that he was surrounded by fire.
Oh, no.
He quickly surrendered his keys and rifle and allowed himself to be led to the hole. The inmates gained full possession of 3 guards, a rifle, and keys to the facility, though they still had no ammunition for the weapon. They quickly moved over to Cell Block 2, where they knew the ammunition was stored, and were in possession of the building within minutes. As it was, the inmates were now in control of 2 rifles, 17 rounds of ammunition, and both cell blocks.
Dang.
Ted Roth had been across the street attending a meeting with Warden Powell and some architects who were designing the new facility. At this point, there had been almost no noise, few scuffles, and no casualties.
Right.
So he had no idea.
Right. Yeah. Everything seems calm. Calm on the home front.
Roth returned to his desk inside the prison a few minutes before 4, oblivious to the inmate takeover. So Roth's office was in the admin building that was inside the prison.
Okay.
He chatted with a guard for a few minutes before sitting behind his desk, which was in view of the door where inmates came to receive their medication. At the gate, Jerry Myles asked Officer William C. Cox for pills that had been prescribed to him for migraine headaches.
Okay.
Cox went to the deputy warden's office to get the medication. While he was gone, the turnkey opened the gate to allow another officer to pass through.
Mm-hmm.
That was the convicts' opportunity. They whipped out their weapons and rushed the gate, quickly overpowering the 2 guards.
Oh my gosh.
As Myles and Smart headed for the deputy warden's office, where Roth was talking to Cox at his desk, Myles yelled at Roth, "I'm going to kill you," and started slashing his knife. Roth grabbed the closest thing to him, a letterbox, to defend himself. Unfortunately, he was unprepared for Lee Smart to use his rifle to shoot him right in the heart.
No.
Sorry.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Myles then wielded his knife and ripped Cox's inner arm from elbow to armpit.
Oh.
Yeah. About 20 convicts joined the riot, attacking guards and bringing them into various jail cells. Many reports said, though, that a large number of the other convicts weren't taking either side.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the 425 prisoners either locked themselves in their own cells or watched developments from a distance.
I probably would have just been like, I'm safe in my own cell.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not my business.
Mm-mm.
By now, the convicts had control of both cell blocks, the admin building, the inside keys, and a supply of narcotics.
Oh.
But they were far from escaping to the outside. The guns of the guards on the outer wall would be able to shoot at them before they even made it across the yard.
Right.
Walter Jones was interviewing 3 inmates in the athletic office that was located off the lobby of Cell Block 1. Jones was oblivious to the riot until the door of the office flew open and George Alton stood there with a rifle aimed at his chest. Alton demanded, "Okay, Jones, come out of there and don't try anything." The convicts led Jones to Cell Block 1, where he saw other guards being locked in a jail cell, 2 to a cell.
Mm-hmm.
Jones reported that many of the active rioters seemed eager to stay on the good side of the hostages in case the uprising failed.
Oh.
Early on in the siege, they had released the wounded Officer Cox and another officer who was a diabetic.
Oh, that's actually kind of thoughtful.
Yeah. Some of them even seemed concerned about the hostages' comfort and said to them, "We'll have coffee and sandwiches for you guys soon."
Oh.
Or they would ask, "How are you doing? Can we get you anything? Coffee, water?"
That's kind of sweet.
I know. And they're covering their asses.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like, I was nice to them during it. Like, you can't get mad at me.
Right. This other scary inmate made me do it.
Right. I was asking them if they wanted coffee and water. Like, obviously, I didn't want to be doing this.
Correct. I feared for my life.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make sure yours was okay.
Right.
Meanwhile, Myles was enacting his plan to capture the warden by forcing Officer John Simonson to call the warden and tell him that there had been a stabbing and ask him to come inside.
Oh, no.
The warden headed over and was accompanied by a guard and Elmer Erickson, the prison's business manager. In order to gain entrance to the prison from the outside, a visitor must wait on the sidewalk until the guard from above identifies the person and then lowers the key. It's attached to a wire.
That's kind of nifty.
Then the visitor unlocks the outer gate, steps into the entrance, and locks the gate behind him. Once the outer gate is locked and the key is pulled back up, the guard then lowers the second key for the inner gate. The guards outside were still unaware of this riot that was underway, and as the warden and the others were coming through the entrance.
Just so they were able to get the keys like lowered and everything, like how it typically would be?
Yeah, so like these guards are like specifically positioned at the entrance.
Oh, okay. So they can't see anything that's going on. They haven't been attacked yet. Nothing
Correct.
like that.
And they can't hear anything. So it's more of like the people who are inside. So even the ones that are around the wall don't know necessarily what is going on because no one's come outside yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Just as Powell stepped through the admin building doorway, Erickson saw something wrong and tried to warn the warden, yelling, "Don't go in!" But it was too late. The convicts grabbed the warden with their guns aimed in his direction. Erickson and the guard retreated through the gate under the cover of the guards at the entrance. Powell was kept in the lobby of the admin building under guard while Myles, Smart, and Alton deployed the rest of their henchmen over the prison and arming them with any sort of weapon they could get their hands on. During this time, Powell began trying to convince his guards that this uprising was doomed to fail, meaning the prisoners guarding him.
Okay.
Not like the guards.
Right.
Specifically his guards.
Yeah.
He told them, quote, "You know, this is the worst possible thing you could do. If you continue, you'll all be charged with murder. Even if you escape, you'll be caught eventually and have extra time to serve. What can you possibly gain?" After about 2 hours of this, a convict guarding the warden using a meat cleaver suddenly hands his weapon to the warden and says, "I can't kill anybody." He then pulled a picture of his wife and children from his shirt pocket and said, "Look at what those SOBs are costing me." Powell replied, "No, they're not. You can get out of this. I'll tell the wall guards to pass you through."
Oh.
Despite the inmate's hesitation, he followed the warden's order to step into the cell block to ask if any other rioters wanted out. Thankfully, Myles and his cronies were in a different area of the prison.
Thank God.
As they came to the entrance of the admin building, Powell slowly opened the door and shouted to the wall guards, "We're coming out." Powell led the group of surrenderers through the main gate and had an officer take them in to a nearby compound and gave them dinner.
Good.
Meanwhile, Myles was approaching the cell where Walter Jones was being held in. At this point, it was about 8 or 10 p.m., 5 hours since the riot began.
Jeez.
Glaring at Jones, Myles said, "Look, Jones, you and I aren't coming out of this alive. Before I die, I'm going to kill you." Jones knew Myles well enough to know that he meant exactly what he said, and Jones was terrified. He knew that Myles blamed him and Deputy Roth for his demotion, and Roth was already dead. The convicts had assembled many cans of naphtha, a highly flammable cleaning fluid, and had made crude torches by wrapping rags around broom handles. If there was any attempt by the guards on the outside to break in, the rioters would shower the hostages with naphtha and toss the torches into the cells.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Jones had a quick pep talk with himself, accepted his fate that he was likely to die at the end of all this, but determined he had to try to buy some time to possibly prevent a massacre.
Oh.
Jones decided to volunteer as a convict's go-between to negotiate with the warden. Jones figured his offer would be better received if he told it to George Alton rather than Jerry Myles. Jones knew that Alton would be opposed to harming the hostages because Alton was only looking to escape, not get revenge. But when Jones called out to Alton to come over so he could share his suggestion, Myles ended up appearing in front of his cell.
Oh, no.
Jones went for it anyway. Jones attempted to leverage himself as the MVP, the most valuable prisoner. My label, not his. After pitching his idea to Myles, Myles thought for a moment and said, "I'll think about it." Sometime after midnight, Myles returned and said, "I think we'll use you," and then added, "But I'm still going to kill you."
Oh.
Jones replied, "I know."
Oh.
He, when he's retelling this story, he's obviously he's sharing his inner thoughts when this is happening.
Right.
But he was like, I had to try to keep my cool. I didn't want them to see whatever. And I think he also, with that pep talk, truly did accept his fate.
Oh, God.
I'm not going to make it out of here alive. Might as well make the best of it while I can. Because the original plan had been to use Deputy Roth, Alton expressed his concerns to Myles that their escape plan was null and void now that Roth was killed. Myles agreed that the original plan had failed, but his new plan was to tunnel under the walls instead.
Oh, okay.
He chose a place in the northwestern tower of cell block 1 and put teams of inmates and kitchen staff to work with picks and shovels to create the tunnel.
Okay, so they actually have legit tools. I'm thinking he's gonna like start with a spoon. And I was like, sir,
No.
you're not gonna get out of here during your riot.
No.
Okay, so they have actual things.
Yes.
Okay.
However, little did they know, a previous warden had built the cell blocks and walls specifically to keep inmates from tunneling out.
Oh, yes. I will touch on that a little bit.
And his designs were effective.
Good.
Yeah.
Good for him.
The word had leaked quickly, and wives and family members of the guards who were hostages started showing up at the prisons.
Oh my gosh.
The incident made international news. Powell decided to enter the prison through the tunnel system, which gave access to the gun ports in the mess hall and catwalks in the cell blocks. Luckily, the riot leaders had been unable to secure a key to the access points to this tunnel system, or else Powell may have been taken hostage again. Powell made his way through the tunnels to the mess hall and shouted for Myles and Smart. Myles showed up, leading Jones with a knife to his throat. Powell asked Myles what he wanted and received a verbal tirade from Myles, who stalked away, leaving Jones with Alton.
Oh.
Powell was told that Myles wanted at least 30 members of the press to come inside the prison, take pictures of the conditions, and speak with the inmates. Powell offered to get 3 reporters inside the walls, but they would not print a word of what they had learned until the hostages were released.
Ooh.
Alton agreed to the plan, because Alton, too, at this point is like, I just want things to be better.
Right.
Through Jones, Myles warned that any offensive action against the prison would end in the killing of hostages by fire, hanging, or stabbing. Myles then spoke up, telling the amassed media that he was fighting for better conditions and just wanted to be heard. He again threatened the hostages with death if any action was taken against the prison, and paraded Jones in front of the windows with a knife at his throat to make his point. At mid-morning on Friday, Myles and Smart allowed Jones to exit the prison walls to escort 3 reporters, one from the Associated Press, another from United Press International, and a third from radio station KREM of Spokane, Washington.
Like escort them in?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Myles gave Jones 8 minutes to return with the media before he threatened to begin killing hostages.
Oh.
And when he's out there, like, his dad and brother are there. And so, like, they greet him too, because it's outside.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not outside the prison, but it's outside of the buildings. And so when he's walking out, like, the chaplain greets him, and, like, his father is there.
Oh.
But he has to be like, I gotta go back in.
Oh.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah. Jones met with the warden and the reporters outside Tower 7 and managed to get the reporters into the mess hall inside his 8-minute window.
Oh, wow.
Only 7 inmates met with the reporters, one of which was George Alton, but neither Jerry Myles or Lee Smart took part in the interview.
Did they just not want to, or were they just not asked?
I don't know. I think they just didn't want to, because they're in charge. So if they wanted to, they would.
Right, exactly.
It's just ironic because supposedly this is their idea and why they're doing it.
Yeah.
And they're not even there to tell the reporters what the problem is.
Right.
Yeah. The reporters recorded a plethora of complaints ranging from the sanitation in cell block 2 to the use of the hole as a disciplinary tool, but the most common grievance was with the parole system. The inmates demanded the resignation of Benjamin Wright, the same man convicts had asked to have fired during the riot of 1957.
Wow.
Side note, he resigned within the first 24 hours of the riot. He caved real fast.
Yeah.
Caved like a caveman in a cave. But Myles decided to raise his price. He told Jones to get a newsman and photographers and tell the warden that until he sees a story or a picture in the newspaper, any newspaper, he won't release the hostages. Alton tried to argue with Myles and said, quote, "But we promised that the hostages would go free the minute the newsmen came in." Myles replied, "No, get it in print first."
Oh.
That's when Alton gave up. He concluded that any attempt at a successful escape was a lost cause. He went back to his cell and stayed there for the duration of the riot.
Dang.
Myles,
That's like their right-hand man kind of thing. Kinda.
he was the only one that was of sound mind and reason.
Right.
And so, they even talked about how he took even a little bit more convincing. And, Myles had to really kind of explain this elaborate plan.
Wow.
Because Alton wasn't just going to do it just to do it.
Right.
If he was only doing it because he truly thought they were going to be able to escape.
Aw.
And so when he realized that this was all bullshit now,
Right.
that's when he was like, well, fuck this. Have fun. You're on your own.
Right.
Myles wouldn't budge on his new demand and sent Jones out the main gate a second time. Jones told the warden about the new demands, but the warden wasn't willing to renegotiate. As Jones turned to go back into the prison, the warden stopped him and said, "There's no reason for you to go back in."
He's saying this to Jones?
Yeah.
Oh.
The warden is.
Yeah.
Jones was worried about what would happen if he didn't keep his promise to Myles, to which the warden said, quote, "Your usefulness has ended. The more concessions we grant, the more they'll ask. There will never be a guarantee that they will turn the hostages free. If you went back, it would be just another life endangered." The warden ordered Jones to go home, and Jones listened.
Good.
One of the officers being held hostage, George Schaefer, later said that when Myles realized Jones wasn't coming back, he flew into a rage. He stomped up and down in front of the hostages, screaming, "I'll burn you all." Schaefer recounted, quote, "We sure figured we'd had it. I'd never seen a man so mad." Warden Powell received a secret message from an inmate by late Friday night that the rioters had sworn a pact that if they weren't out by daybreak, they would kill all the hostages and commit suicide.
Oh.
36 hours after Myles, Smart, and Alton poured gasoline on a guard to start the riot, the Montana National Guard ended the riot.
Jeez.
At about 4:45 a.m. on April 18th, 1959, the National Guard fired a bazooka at the southwest tower of Cell Block 1.
Oh, my God.
Which you can actually still see in pictures.
Yeah.
As soon as the first bazooka round hit Cell Block 1, a contingent of 7 teams of the National Guard burst through the door and split up, some rushing the main entrance to Cell Block 1, others to Cell Block 2, and more circling around to storm the admin building. The team that invaded Cell Block 1 had to burst through 2 barricaded doors before gaining access to the tiers of cells. Most of the inmates were already in their cells and did not give the guardsmen any problems. The soldiers filed up to where the hostages were kept and freed them, escorting them through the door into the minimum security facility. All hostages emerged unharmed.
Good.
Back in Cell Block 1, a team of guardsmen entered the tower where Myles and Smart were hiding. The soldiers had to push past a pile of rubble which had been removed from the unsuccessful tunneling attempt as they made their way up the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
A third bazooka round exploded against the tower, followed by tear gas canisters fired from the walls. It was then that the 2 convicts, the ringleaders of the riot, Jerry Myles and Lee Smart, fully ended the riot with a murder-suicide. They were found sprawled on the floor, killed by rifle bullets. There was only 1 rifle with them, and it was still in Smart's hands. The evidence indicated that Smart had killed Myles and then himself.
Wow.
Walter Jones ended his...
Smart was the younger one.
Correct.
Oh.
But I think he was more suicidal. I think Myles, from what it sounds like, was like the narcissist, the arrogant one.
Yeah.
Like he probably would not have necessarily killed himself because he doesn't care about getting in more trouble.
Right.
Like, this is where he thrives. Versus Smart was like,
I don't want to do this.
I don't want to do this because I want to get the fuck out of here.
Mm-hmm.
I already got 30 years.
Right.
So at least that's my thinking.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Walter Jones ended his retelling of those terrifying 36 hours with, quote, "But I believe the warden will agree that there are deeper reasons for prison uprisings. I'm afraid that until the time comes when the world emphasizes social and human sciences and learns to bridge the gap between society and its weakest members, we will have incorrigibles and prison riots. Of course, I do not condone any part of Montana's riot or any convict who participated. However, I can't help remembering something that happened during the pre-dawn period on Friday when Myles was guarding me in the catwalk gun cage. There was a sharp explosion outside the prison wall, and Myles instantly aimed his cocked rifle at my stomach. He listened intently, but no more sounds came. Evidently, the noise had been a car backfiring. Then his angry face relaxed and he said a strange thing. I wonder where you and I would have been tonight if I had a family when I was a kid."
Aww.
Yeah, feelings are valid. Actions are not. Both of the social workers who worked at the prison left within 6 months of the riot. The Montana Standard reported on October 4th, 1959, that Walter Jones and Mark Girolamo resigned from the prison. Jones didn't elaborate why he was leaving, but Girolamo was more than happy to share his thoughts about the faults of the prison. He told reporters that the prison did not have the sufficient manpower or funds for conducting good social work.
I mean, I can see why Jones would want to leave. Yeah. That one's not really like, oh, I wonder why he left.
Right.
Like, you just talked about everything that happened for why he left.
Correct. Girolamo said that the increased security at the prison is not the answer to rehabilitation for the prisoners, but that it results in, quote, making the means of prison operations more important than the end. Girolamo believed that a person trained in administering a social work program is needed at the prison to bring in modern concepts of penology. In 1959. So, some statistics for you. The Sentencing Project is an advocacy group that advocates for effective and humane responses to crime that minimizes imprisonment and criminalization of youth and adults by promoting racial, ethnic, economic, and gender justice. So on their website, they have countless data and research about the current state of our prisons and justice system. So some of those facts. 1 in 7 people in the U.S. prisons are serving a life sentence. In 2019, over half the people in U.S. prisons, which amounts to more than 770,000 people, were serving sentences of 10 years or longer.
Wow.
Black youth is over 4 times as likely to be detained or committed in juvenile facilities as their white peers. 1 in 5 Black men born in 2001 is likely to experience imprisonment within their lifetime. Don't worry, though. That's an increase from 1981 when it was 1 in 3.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Well, a decrease.
Correct. Yeah, how does that work? Increase, decrease?
It would be a decrease because
Decrease.
1 in 3 is 33%, 1 in 5 is 20%. So a decrease.
Yeah, in 20 years.
Yeah.
It took 20 years to know that.
Jeez.
According to the Sentencing Project, quote, people of color, particularly African Americans, experience imprisonment at a far higher rate than whites.
Mm-hmm.
The experience of imprisonment is concentrated among people with lower levels of education, wealth, and income, but racial disparities in imprisonment exist across all socioeconomic groups.
Yeah.
In 2021, Black Americans were imprisoned at 5 times the rate of whites, while Indigenous people and Latinx people were imprisoned at 4.2 times and 2.4 times the white rate, respectively.
Mm-hmm.
Black, Latinx, and Indigenous people communities are more likely than their white counterparts to experience spatial concentrated poverty, the results of long-standing and ongoing segregation, discrimination, and disinvestment. Experience with socioeconomic disadvantage is common among many people in prisons, where over 2/3, 69% of the population, are people of color.
Yeah.
In 2016, nearly 2/3 of imprisoned individuals had not completed high school, 70% had spent time in the foster care system, and 14% reported being homeless in the year before their arrest.
Wow.
There are 2 million people in the nation's prisons and jails. It's a 500% increase over the last 40 years.
Oh my God.
Changes in sentencing laws and policy, not changes in crime rates, explain most of the increase. These trends have resulted in prison overcrowding and fiscal burdens on states to accommodate a rapidly expanding penal system, despite increasing evidence that large-scale incarceration is not an effective means of achieving public safety.
No, it's not.
So some more information and data from the Federal Bureau of Prisons, directly from the DOJ's website.
Oh, you really got on your soapbox here.
I'm not on the soapbox yet. This is the...
steps up to the soapbox?
This is the background knowledge you need before I get up on the soapbox.
Oh, okay.
Soapbox is actually pretty short. I made it concise, to the point.
Concise for Mackenzie? Or concise?
No, pretty concise. It's just all this other stuff. That's why I'm saying I'm not on the box yet.
Okay.
The first and most important step in reentry planning is obtaining information about an individual inmate's risk of recidivating, close enough, and pragmatic needs that will inform development of an individualized reentry plan. Social science research indicates each inmate possesses his or own criminogenic factors, such as criminal history, substance abuse, and education level. By identifying these factors as soon as an inmate enters custody, the prison can ensure that the individual receives appropriate services.
Mm-hmm.
Research shows that inmates who participate in correctional education programs have a 43% lower odds of returning to prison than those that do not, and that every dollar spent on prison education saves $4 to $5 on the cost of reincarceration.
How cool.
Research shows that recidivism...
Recidivism?
Yeah. There's too many eyes.
Oh my God, that was so funny.
How do you say it?
Recidivism.
Recidivism. Research shows that recidivism risk can be effectively reduced through evidence-based programming that targets criminogenic needs, such as courses on cognitive behavioral therapy and other topics. Inmate programming also makes prisons safer because inmates occupied in productive activities are less likely to engage in institutional misconduct.
Makes sense.
Idle hands. Research shows that close and positive family relationships during incarceration reduce recidivism. Can't say that word. I'm like Nemo with an M and I mean.
Recidivism.
That.
Just point to me and I'll say it.
Okay. Research shows that close and positive family relationships during incarceration reduce
recidivism,
improve an individual's likelihood of finding and keeping a job after prison, and ease the harm of family members separated from their loved ones. Access to government-issued identification documents is crucial to successful reentry. Without such documentation, men and women leaving correctional facilities face extreme challenges, securing employment, housing, registering for school, opening bank accounts, and accessing other benefits such as healthcare that are critical to successful integration.
Mm-hmm.
Steps onto soapbox. This research and this data is impartial scientific and statistical data. What that means is human bias is limited to non-existent. That should tell you that the information is credible and not fake news. So when you see the news about someone who has committed a crime, pay close attention to the way that they report it because it will differ greatly depending on the race.
Oh, yeah.
When community activists are trying to bring awareness to reforming policies and laws, it is not bullshit. It will make a difference. And yes, it should matter to you because you should want better for human lives, even ones who make mistakes. The motto I live by is to be proactive, not reactive. Work on fixing the problem before it happens to help ensure it doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
Steps down from soapbox. In conclusion, the prison closed in 1997 and was turned into a museum where visitors can take a tour of the prison, see prison artifacts like the guns that the guards used, inmate-crafted weapons, and a book designed to conceal cigarettes.
Oh.
Possibly one of its most prominent artifacts that memorializes the Prison Riot of 1959 is the display of a piece of Jerry Miles's jaw that was dislodged when he died.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, the lady in the video was like, one of the officers, I guess, had slipped and landed on something, supposedly put it in his pocket.
Ugh.
And then, like, years later, gave it to one of the museum people.
Oh my God.
And it was part of the jaw.
Jesus.
So, yeah, that's the riot of 1959.
Jeez.
So, just a little facts for you. And most of these facts were being said in 1959.
Yeah.
65 years ago.
And that's a big...
In Montana!
That's a big thing with our prison system is that they work on just, like, not helping the person get better and, like, you know, reintegrating them and making sure that they don't come back.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of getting them in here and then, oh, you're done with your shift. Okay, go. It's not getting them ready for it. It's not, like,
Correct.
stopping them from coming back in. It's not rehabilitating them. It's just pretty much being like, you served your time, bye.
For people like Jerry Miles, who become so much more comfortable in prison, end up continuing to make crimes because they want to be incarcerated because to them, it's easier to function in there than it is the outside world.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, I get really into my prison things and, like, I'm watching my prison show now. And so one of the things that I read some article and people were like, oh yeah, I enjoyed being in prison because now I have bills and things I have to pay for and things I have to do and responsibility and all of these things that I don't feel free for.
Correct.
But when I was in jail, technically I wasn't free, but I was.
Yeah. You probably had more rights.
Yeah. It's just wild.
I mean, in even movies, they show that struggle. Like Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
You see that struggle. And even Orange is the New Black. I remember when some of them got out.
Yeah.
Coming back because
yeah,
they don't teach. It's like
they don't teach you how to get back into society.
Right.
Afterward.
It's the same way that, like, people bitch about the fact that high schools don't prepare you for the real world.
Right.
You have to prepare these people, especially when they're young and they come, you know, they go in at 20, they come out at 50.
Right.
Like I said, proactive, not reactive. And that will actually make things safer. Which people have been saying for 65 years.
Right.
Just wanted to reiterate what people were already saying with facts, again, that people were already saying.
Well, nicely done.
Thank you.
Nice job covering it and nice job giving the important facts.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So, you know, go see a therapist. It will apparently do wonders.
Yeah, apparently.
So, yeah.
Well, nicely done.
Thank you. What's spooky to you pouring, Lauren?
All right. So, as you already mentioned, I get to do the special part of it, still about the Montana Territorial Prison. So, it all began in 1862 during the Montana Gold Rush. So, the gold rush obviously attracted hardworking individuals who were looking for the money that the gold rush promised. But it also brought in criminals who wanted to take advantage of the situation.
COVID.
So, this area was lawless at the time, and the residents of Montana knew something had to be done. Those who broke congressional laws were sent to the Nebraska State Penitentiary, while those who broke or violated territorial laws were sent to county jails.
Yeah, it wasn't even a state yet.
Right. So these ones were primarily in Madison County. There was also a federal prison located in Virginia City, but it just couldn't handle the problems that the territory of Montana was facing and couldn't handle the amount of people being sent. So in 1867, Territorial Governor James M. Ashley demanded a properly equipped penitentiary, one that could actually accommodate and meet the needs. Congress eventually appropriated, quote, no more than $40,000 to build a proper prison in Montana. Later that year, the Deer Lodge site was approved as location for that prison.
We swear this wasn't planned when we picked our stories.
In 1871, construction on the prison began, of course, with the help of convict labor. This was all done before Montana even gained its statehood, which happened in 1889. The Montana Territorial Prison became the first territorial prison in the western part of the U.S.
Nice.
Yeah. It started off small, as at the time, the prison only had about 14 cells and no perimeter fence.
Huh.
Yeah. The first prisoner was locked in on July 2nd, 1871. So as you would assume, the prison wasn't meant to hold as many prisoners as were shoved in there, and that capacity was met within just 1 month of opening.
Of course it was.
And because of this overcrowding mixed with the underfunding, the prisoners were subjected to horrible conditions, which, you know, we kind of already know about. So the prison as a whole was filthy.
We can see the foreshadowing here.
Right. The prisoners rarely got enough food. Fights would break out, which would result in deaths, and suicides were far too common. Restraints and shackles were commonly used for the unruly inmates, as there was nowhere for them to really go.
Damn.
The overcrowding issue actually got so bad that eventually prisoners were forced to live in camps on the grounds until more housing units could be built. These housing units...
That seems secure.
Right. And at the time when we don't really have a perimeter fence.
Correct.
These housing units were finally completed in 1886 and did help a bit with the overcrowding problem, but still not nearly enough. So we have a different warden than yours. We have Warden Frank Conley. He took charge of the prison in 1890 and would serve as the warden for 31 years until 1921. One of the first things he did when he became warden in 1890 was initiate a prison expansion program where he used convict labor to expand the prison. And convict labor is what it sounds like, using the inmates to do the work.
Slave labor, but that's okay.
Yeah. A 1912 cell house and the maximum security building were both built during this program. Conley also had the inmates replace the 12-foot wooden fence with a 24-foot-high sandstone walls, which were buried 4 feet underground as well.
Which is why.
So this extra step of burying the walls 4 feet underground was to prevent escape attempts, which had been frequent when they were only 12-foot wooden high.
So cell block 1 was 1912.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, even though cell block 2 was in the 1800s. So it was like a little confusing.
Over time with this expansion program, inmates made 1.2 million bricks by hand.
God damn.
These bricks were used to build cell houses and other buildings. The inmates were also responsible for cutting timber and digging for the lime that was used in the cement. And to no shock, it was still suffering from severe overcrowding and even more severe underfunding, which hit even harder during the Depression of 1893, leaving the prison without the funds needed to make essential improvements to the prison ground and improvements to the prison in general.
There was one in 1893 too? In school, I really thought there was just one.
Just one. Yep.
But there was just one Great Depression.
Yeah.
Clearly there was a bunch of...
Another depression. Yeah. And the D was capital. So it was a depression.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this even more ignited Conley's thought of convict labor, saying that it would benefit both the inmates and the prison, because now they don't have a lot of money, so they need to use who they have. This program would generate income for the prisons that would in turn be used to finance the territorial penitentiary's expansion and help with maintenance. It would also help the inmates learn valuable skills that would be helpful for when they were to reintegrate into society. To further advance this and help even more with overcrowding, prison camps were set up outside of the prison where the inmates who were doing this convict labor would live. They could then be, quote, hired out for both public and private work.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
They're literally slaves.
Yeah.
Because they're not getting any of this money.
No. But no, of course not.
Trying to say that they're going to benefit because then they'll have more space.
Because this money will then help the prison.
Yeah, I know.
I know.
Some bullshit.
The program actually worked so well that by the late 1890s, about 1/3 of the prisoners were working outside of the prison and living in these prison camps. Each camp housed about 75 prisoners and actually allowed them a bit of extra freedom because they had no chains and no cells restricting them. So they actually kind of more enjoyed being out there where they had the more freedom. They could get out of the prison, go work.
Interesting.
By the second decade, about 50% of the inmates were now working outside of the penitentiary. They were helping build numerous state buildings, paved miles of road, and worked on 11 different ranches to provide food for state-owned institutions. So women were admitted to the prison in 1907. They were housed on the 3rd floor, and there were far fewer women than men, fewer than 10 at a time.
Damn.
Yeah. But they weren't subjected to any better conditions. Unlike the men, the women weren't allowed to work and get the outside jobs that the men had. They weren't allowed to take any educational classes, and they were just as crammed, if not more crammed, than the men. But we know that conditions were never good. So like I said, the inmates were subjected to awful conditions in the prison with the overcrowding, underfunding, and violent environment. Prisoners were forced to work during the day, either outside of the prison or inside. They slept in close to solitary conditions at night and were to adhere to a strict code of silence. Those who were thought of as a flight risk or a potential escapee were forced to wear work shoes that had concrete soles instead of leather ones. These shoes also weighed 20 pounds each.
Myles had to wear those.
Did he?
Yep.
That sounds so awful.
Yeah.
But I mean, it'd be really hard to run with 40 pounds on your feet.
They have those shoes at the museum too.
Oh, I would like to see them actually.
Right? There's a lot of museums that I think we need to go to.
I think so too. Any infractions or rule breaking would land you in solitary confinement. The doors for solitary confinement were huge, heavy metal doors that blocked out all light and all sound. So the inmates were truly and absolutely alone. Or you'd get unlucky and end up in Siberia or the hole. So the hole is exactly what it sounds like, a hole used for punishment where a prisoner was forced to stay. Siberia was also a very dark spot. It was known as Siberia because it had no heat. So in the winter, it was freezing cold.
I thought it because it was far away.
I mean, probably both reasons.
Okay.
But one of the main ones was because of how cold it would get.
Yeah.
So there were also 3 riots that the prison experienced due to intolerable living conditions and mismanagement of the prison. But the last one occurred in 1959, which Mackenzie talked about.
We've come full circle.
So yeah, pretty much everything you said I wrote about. But that tower that they were in where the bazooka was shot, they named that as the Death Tower.
Yes.
Because of, what kind of happened.
Mm-hmm.
And like you also said, the riot is actually what brought public attention to the overcrowding situation at the prison. The prison, though, continued to house prisoners until 1979, when the final prisoner was finally moved to a new facility west of town, the Montana State Prison. So,
Part 2.
Yeah, pretty much. Today, the Montana Department of Corrections runs 3 other correctional facilities in a way to spread out the inmates to avoid the overcrowding that had once plagued the old prison. These are the Montana Women's Prison in Billing, the Pine Hills Correctional Facility in Miles City, and the Riverside Special Needs Unit in Boulder. In 1976, the Montana Territorial Prison has been added to the Registry of National Historic Places and today serves as a museum with 5 unique museums inside and a tourist attraction. So I'm sure it's hard to imagine that there were quite a few notorious and notable prisoners who called this prison home. So
I tried not to look at those in case you talked about them.
I'm going to.
Okay.
So the first one I want to talk about is one of the prison's most colorful characters, Paul Turkey Pete Ettner.
The turkey guy.
Yes.
Saw his name.
So Ettner was a German immigrant, and when he arrived in Montana, he found lodging in a local boarding home and found work as a porter at a Mills City saloon. One evening in January of 1918, he strode down the hall of the boarding house, and with his .38 revolver, he fired 3 times at a fellow lodger.
Damn.
The man he shot died 3 days later. His motives for the attack were never made clear.
You gotta wonder when they have these things where it's like a severe injury, but the person doesn't die until a few days later. It always makes me think, if it had been today, would they have been saved?
Maybe, honestly.
Because clearly, obviously, it was life-threatening. And I know that even today, people can be in a life-threatening condition and still be, a day or 2 later is when they pass.
Right.
But in times like this, I always think if, they were they able to keep them around, but just not long enough to heal them? And would they have been able to?
Because this was in 1918.
Right.
So that was 106 years ago? Ugh. Oh my God. That's the right math, right? Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I was doing a project or an assignment for grad school, and I had to find research articles, and I had found a couple that pertained to what I'm writing about. And when I got the feedback for my bibliography, he said that a couple of them were outside of the 15-year mark. And I was like, no, they're not. Well, 2007 and 2008 are outside of 15 years from 2024.
I hate that.
I can only go back 2009.
You should have said, I'm sorry, that really doesn't compute with me right now. So, because for us, 15 years ago was the 90s.
I literally had to count.
Yeah.
I was like, no, they're not. What are you talking about? I'm like, oh my God, yes, they are.
Yeah. So Ettner's case was taken to trial, and it seemed like a typical self-defense case. Somehow. But at the last minute, he changed his plea to guilty, hoping for leniency from the judge. Well, it wasn't a great idea.
But you have self-defense.
I don't know.
Stupid.
It wasn't a good idea anyways, because the judge wasn't sympathetic and instead gave him a life sentence for his murder conviction.
Damn.
Ettner took well to prison, though, and was considered a model prisoner. He was placed in charge of the prison's flock of turkeys due to that good behavior. He was employed doing this until about 1932, when he sold all of the birds to a farmer passing by for only 25 cents a turkey, which would be about $5 today. So once he sold all of them, they're like, no more.
Sounds like something that you could imagine SpongeBob doing.
Right. So the incident earned him the nickname Turkey Pete.
There we go.
But also while in prison, Turkey Pete's mental health started to rapidly deteriorate, some believe due to dementia.
So how old was he? Do we know?
No, we don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't know how old he was. But so he's not all there. And he believed that he had a diamond mind and a huge imaginary fortune. A fortune that he wanted to use to help the prison.
No.
In the prison shop, prisoners would print Ettner Enterprises on checks, and he would give away millions of his pretend fortune.
Oh my God, that's so cute.
I know. He paid all prison expenses and paid all of the guards' salaries. He also believed that with his money, he was sending funds to the president of the defense budget. From his cell, he said that he ran a coffee crop, sold 10,000 pink alligators for $100 million, purchased alfalfa seed from Pancho Villa, sold grasshopper legs to Fidel Castro, spent $20 million to buy an insurance company in Russia, and even sold ships to the Navy.
Is this dementia or
I think it started with dementia, but
Because this
way downhill.
doesn't even sound like he's just making up shit now.
Yeah. But all of the prisoners and even the guards played along with Pete.
That's cute.
I know. He was well liked. He was a mascot for the prison band. I wonder if you knew your guys.
Well, when was this?
After the 1930s.
He didn't get there till 1956.
They might have known each other.
They might have.
He was a mascot for the prison band. He also acted as manager for the boxing team. He was a supreme shadow boxer.
What does that mean?
When you don't box with anyone, you box against your shadow. So he was a supreme shadow boxer.
Oh.
He was the best one in the prison.
Okay.
He was denied parole multiple times by the prison board as they believed that he just would not be able to adjust to life on the outside.
No, he's clearly not mentally competent.
Right. He died in 1967 at the age of 89 after serving 49 years behind bars.
So he definitely was there during the riot.
Yeah.
He probably did not participate.
I highly doubt it.
Yeah.
He was mourned by many, and many attended his funeral in the prison theater. His funeral was the only funeral ever held within the walls of the prison. So Etner's cell, number 1 in the 1912 cell house, was never reassigned and was left exactly how he left it as a sort of memorial to the man that was well loved. So obviously other people who were housed here were James Myles and Lee Smart. George Rock and William Hayes were here. In 1908, Rock and Hayes tried to make an escape from the prison yard, but their attempt ended in the death of Deputy Warden John Robinson.
Wonder if he took the place of Roth.
I don't know. Maybe.
Clearly, that's a bad luck position to have.
Yeah. Because Warden Frank Conley was still there, and he suffered several injuries during their escape, as both Rock and Hayes had been armed with knives.
Mm-hmm.
Because of this, Conley's knife wounds required 103 stitches in total on his back and his neck.
Holy shit.
I know. Later that same year, Rock was hanged on the prison grounds, and Hayes met a similar fate in 1909.
Damn.
So they were the only 2 prisoners who were ever officially executed on the prison's premises. Then we have Stanley Dean Baker. So tell me if this sounds familiar to you.
Okay.
In 1970, Baker killed a man and ate his heart.
Yeah.
He also wore a leather pouch around his neck, which contained the fingers of the man he killed. And he was known to worship Satan. If he sounds familiar, it's because I covered him in our last Montana episode. So if you want the full episode on him, check out episode 86. He was the hippie Satanist.
Okay.
Other notable inmates who were actually at the newer prison, but still in the prison, are William Golahan, a convicted serial killer on death row, George Harold Davis, a white supremacist who eventually perpetuated the 2003 Ennis shooting, where Davis opened fire on a group of people outside of bar in downtown Ennis, Ma Barker, a Depression-era gang leader who went by the alias of Burke Lavender. So upon closer look, it appears that she went by Kate Barker and was the mother of several American criminals who ran the Barker Carpus gang during the, quote, public enemy era, when the exploits of gangs of criminals in the Midwestern United States gripped the American people and press. She traveled with her sons during their criminal careers.
What's her name?
Ma Barker, or Kate Barker.
Makes me think of Kissing Kate Barlow.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, she never did any of the gang stuff, but she was like kind of the leader.
Yeah, she was a, what is it called when you, not instigator, but if someone's doing something, you don't stop them. Enabler.
Yep. Charlie Jones, he was part of the Hole in the Wall gang, which was led by Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Nice.
So I didn't go into that because that's a whole gang
The whole thing.
So the museum today, more or less, is dedicated to law enforcement, but it also houses and holds a lot of what was originally in the prison, such as the shackles and restraints I mentioned. It also provides a glimpse as to what the conditions were like for the prisoners. So it shows the daily log sheets, all in glass cases, and provides a detailed description of how guards and inmates spent their day. Artwork from former prisoners is hung up on the walls. The lethal weapons that they made with kitchen forks and other simple tools are also on display, which that just is so scary.
If you go to the Death Museum in New Orleans, they have some of those things
All
too.
of that stuff too.
Like they have the drawings that I believe it was John Wayne Gacy who made them.
Ugh.
One of the like well-known ones could actually draw pretty well, but like the shit that they drew was fucking
Disturbing.
And they have some of those.
Of course.
Yeah.
So an interesting little piece, if a male guard wanted to grow and have a mustache, permission was needed to be granted by state authorities. There were written guidelines as to the allowed length and details about mustache care, and those are on display at the museum as well.
God, if only men actually took care of their appearance like that all the time.
I know. In the center yard, scratched into bricks, are the names, dates, and prison numbers of the men who served their time at the prison, a ghostly reminder of who may still be roaming the grounds.
Ooh.
There are 4 other museums to explore within the complex as well. So there's the popular one, the Montana Auto Museum. It displays over 160 cars from classic Chevys to those from the start of the 20th century. There's a Frontier, Montana Museum, which houses a collection of cowboy relics.
Nice.
The Powell County Museum, which is dedicated to preserving mining, wood carving, and local history. And then Yesterday's Playthings, which is Montana's most famous doll and toy museum. All of these are in the same area as the jail.
In the prison?
Yeah.
Nice.
So you can go to all 5 of them.
Nice.
So we know that jail has to be pretty haunted. So it is a very pretty haunted place. It's not hard to imagine this when you think of all the violence and negative feelings that are attached to it.
A lot of shit went down.
So there are a few certain parts of the jail that are considered to be the most haunted. So we have the admin building. This is known for historic murders and historic haunts.
I know one.
There are the 2 penitentiary areas in the prison. So one area was used for maximum security. The creepiest encounters usually take place in the solitary confinement cells on the lower level, obviously. Also in the penitentiary area, this is where visitors and even staff will have their most paranormal experiences. The other was used for general population. Then there's maximum security. So the part of the prison housed the black box. The black box was comprised of 2 cells where prisoners were kept in total darkness for up to 3 days at a time.
Oof.
3 days. Then we have the Death Tower, which we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So this tower has become one of the most haunted locations in the prison and is only open to those who do the actual ghost tour, which is offered by the prison. Those who do come up to the tower believe it is haunted by James, Myles, and Lee Smart, as this is where they died. The spirits are said to still be felt up there. The auditorium housed traveling gallows, which had been used for hangings. I believe the hangings of George Rock and William Hayes.
Mm-hmm.
The canteen. Footsteps have been heard walking around here, which is like the food area. Spirits also respond to questions in this room pretty intelligently. So such as one group who was able to communicate using a light-up cat toy.
Nice.
So the spirit in the canteen responded intelligently, answering questions as the group asked them. Then we have cell block 1912. So I mentioned this one, and this is where prisoners would end up.
Block 1.
Yes. So prisoners seem to end up and spend a lot of time in this block, especially Turkey Pete. It is said that this is one of the most haunted cell blocks in the entire prison.
That's where like all the hostages and shit were held.
So that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So one spirit who is said to cause extreme ghostly activity is that of a cannibalistic Satan worshiper. I believe this is probably Stanley Dean Baker.
Yeah.
Or maybe they just had 2 cannibalistic Satan worshipers.
It's possible, but
you know.
the odds.
Lights have appeared in here where there is, like, in places where there's no way a light could have appeared.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the women's block, women's voices have been heard. One group of investigators picked up a woman saying, "Hi." Nancy is known to be a popular spirit in this block. Ryan and Shane from BuzzFeed Unsolved investigated the prison, and while in the women's block, they did the flashlight session, so where you turn it and, like, spirits can tap it to answer questions. They got some very intelligent responses with that.
Did Ryan pee his pants?
No. But there was one where Shane was like, "If you want me, turn the flashlight off." And something happened. He goes, "See, look, they do want me." Or like, I don't know. They said something, but so they turned it off right when he was being really braggy, and it was really funny.
I love their dynamic.
I do too.
It's hilarious.
So today, the prison is known for its haunted reputation, like I said. And it is, get this, the most haunted location in Southwest Montana.
Wow. Actually, that's kind of like not a great brag because you're not even in your whole state. You're only in a region.
I know, in Southwest Montana. So visitors flock here to explore it. The first thing visitors experience, even just upon walking in, is an intense feeling of being watched. There are also feelings of intense anxiety and a heavy feeling that seems to linger in the air. And similar to that is the feeling of dread that seems to suddenly wash over you right before the feeling of being attacked hits.
Ugh.
Uh-huh. Many people experience inexplainable coldness in random spots. It is also common and well known that the spirits here will transfer their emotions to visitors. So visitors will randomly come very angry or like have these intense feelings of anger and rage that just all of a sudden come on. Those who have visited have reported hearing voices, footsteps, and other eerie noises. People have heard cat calls when they're alone and have heard voices coming out of empty cells. The sound of prison doors opening and slamming shut has been reported, and phantom music has been played on the abandoned piano.
Ooh.
Orbs are often captured on videos and in photos. Apparitions have been spotted sometimes around doors or around corners, like people have seen heads peeking around a corner.
Mm-mm.
Ghosts have been known to push and touch visitors. People have noticed
Keep your hands to yourself.
I know. Some people have noticed 3 long scratches on themselves after leaving, which is always like that mocking of the Holy Trinity. Scratches usually happen in the surveillance tunnels under the prison.
But I mean, if you think about it, if you go to scratch someone, I feel like these are going to hit more because these are short.
Yeah.
So it makes sense.
But yeah, it's always 3. Some who have come have described feeling a large, malevolent presence rushed past them.
You're in a prison.
I know, but I hate that. You like feel it run past you.
If I'm going to go on any sort of ghost tour, I'm not going to go to a place that literally housed people who did bad things.
Valid.
Yeah.
I'd like to go.
I'm sure you would. You can go by yourself.
There is said to be the spirit of a little girl who was at the prison. Her story goes that she was supposedly killed by one of the cars in the showroom or well in one of the cars. She is known to tug on the hoods of sweatshirts.
Okay, something kind of weird. In the magazine that I read for my story, there is an ad and it has like a little girl it's basically advertising about watching out for pedestrians.
Oh.
And it's like a little morbid because she's like says something about, watching out for me or whatever. So it's ironic that it was also next to the article for
Ew, I wonder.
the prison.
Ew.
Yeah.
The spirits here are very active and will respond to a lot of the equipment that ghost hunters use. The most active, though, is the response knocking, where participants will rap out a pattern of knocks and often receive a response back.
It's not an echo?
No, it's not an echo. It's not like the same knock coming back. A lot of cameras and other electronic devices, even those that have been fully charged, will stop working or the battery will completely drain.
See, you would never be able to tell.
For my phone and watch now.
Because your shit dies
so quickly.
Anywhere you are.
Ben Young, an investigator, did the shave and a haircut knock in one of the cells. Do you know what that is?
Nope. That's like my knock that I always do.
I know. But so he would do the first part of the knock.
Ooh, sorry.
And then he received 2 very strong knocks to follow.
Oh, nice.
So then Shane and Ryan tried it and
didn't work.
Well, one time it almost did. One girl who went there for a tour said that she believes some kind of dark entity attached itself to her. Oh, yeah, I read this part, and that's when I decided I didn't want to go. So, yeah, I'm back on that. I don't want to go here.
Okay.
She said that since returning home from the investigation, strange things started happening, and every now and then she will get extreme vertigo and nausea, usually followed by cold spots all over her body and a massive drain of energy, all things that she never experienced before visiting the jail. This apparently happened to another guy as well. He said that he was followed home by a malicious spirit. It would attack him every night. He would be scratched so deep that blood was drawn.
Oh my God.
He was punched by the spirit.
Okay.
He saw shadows and had many cases of sleep paralysis. He said that he did exorcise the spirit, but the experiences kept happening and the spirits never leave.
So clearly you didn't.
So yeah, you didn't do it right then.
See, maybe it's because you're trying to do it with a false religion.
Maybe.
Got to do voodoo.
Yes. So if you're brave enough to enter the prison, ghost tours are offered year-round for only $50 a person. The tours, like I mentioned a bit, allow you to roam around the property at night, trying to talk to the spirits who still linger there. So they offer something that's actually very cool. So it's called the Virtual Convict Lockdown. So it's a new activity that is offered for $125. So you will be convicted of a crime, sentenced, given prison attire to change into, and sent to your own cell where you will spend the night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, dinner and breakfast are included, but it's not real prison food. It's like actual food.
That's nice.
It's a way to experience what a day would have been like for the prisoners who were unfortunate enough to be sentenced to the Montana Territorial Prison. So, like I said, this place is super haunted, so a ton of people have come here.
Yeah.
So Ghost Adventures filmed an episode here, season 10, episode 8. Of course, BuzzFeed Unsolved, who I talked about.
Did you watch the one I told you to watch?
No, I didn't get around to it.
Loser.
I know. One on HBO, like Mackenzie wanted me to watch. Discovery Channel's Ghost Lab was here in 2010. Haunted Collectors was here in 2012. The prison has also been featured in a few movies due to location scouts being in awe of the prison's distinct architecture and gloomy feel.
What movies?
So according to IMDb, these movies are none that I've ever heard of, but Runaway Train, 1985, starring Jon Voight. Fast Walking, 1982, starring James Woods. Diggstown, 1992, also starring James Woods. And then Livers Ain't Cheap, 1996, starring James Russo.
I have no idea who any of those people are.
I've heard of James Wood and Jon Voight.
I'm sure if I saw a picture.
Yeah, but I have not seen any one of those movies.
Or heard of them.
But there you have it, the Montana Territorial Prison.
Well, so not only is it filled with a dark history, as told by me.
Yeah.
But that history comes back and haunts the place.
As told by me.
Yes. Oh my God. Description practically writes itself.
Oh, amazing.
It's going to be the easiest one I've ever written. Because we're basically doing the same thing. Like, this is the one time that you doing something haunted and me doing something like murdery connect. And it is not going to be a pain in the ass to try to think of something.
Right.
Oh, come. I think that was cool, though, too.
Yeah.
That, like, kind of tied together.
Yes.
I give you, like, here's some shit that went down. And then, look at that. They haunt it later.
Because of how awful the shit was, here's the hauntings. Yeah.
And we didn't even do it on purpose.
Look at us. Just on that same wavelength.
It's also Montana.
There's not much there. No.
So.
Oh, I have something to tell you. I forgot. So Mobile Hope, where my mom works, they have like a thrift store.
Okay, yeah.
It's out in Percival.
Okay.
Apparently it's haunted.
Oh, good.
Because mom looked up the history of it. So a couple years ago, I think it was 2020 or 2021, before they owned it, it used to be kind of like an apartment kind of thing. There had been a murder.
Oh.
A husband killed his wife.
Oh.
And one of the people who mom works with was talking about the story, and something like a book like literally flew off the wall when they were talking about it. And they're like, oh, cool. So mom said that could be a good place for you to begin an investigation.
Sounds like a terrible place.
We just go visit and you see it in the daytime. I've been there multiple times. Okay, I've been there once, but still. We go visit. You see it in the daytime. You walk around, maybe get some clothes because they're at a great price and they're super cute. And then
I know, I've contributed.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then we go back, maybe at nighttime one day.
Maybe.
I think it's a good starter place. Everyone who agrees with me, chime in, let us know. Well, thank you for listening to this episode of Montana. As always, follow us in all the places, rate and review us.
Do all the things that we ask you to do every single time. I will say we've gotten a couple new followers whose names escape me at the moment, but they followed us since last week. So awesome. Welcome aboard.
Yeah.
We appreciate the support.
Appreciate?
Appreciate.
Oh, yes, appreciate the support.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for listening.
Yeah, as always.
So stay scary.
And stay safe.